Hey, good evening, guys. So my name is Sulu, and today we are going to have our first stream on English. And our speaker is Anatoliy Fedorenko. He is going to tell you about 7 habits of highly awesome developers. So Anatoly, back to you.
Thank you, Isulu. Hello, everyone. Yes, as Isulu mentioned, I would talk about awesome developers. Well, first, let me introduce myself and the company, actually. So we, in MedDevs, we work on very complicated projects. So we deal with development of infrastructure. We deal with complex solutions to complex problems. And actually, a lot of the times we work on the projects that were already developed by someone and then they dropped, so the team dropped for some reasons. And so a lot of the times we just take care of the project that was developed or underdeveloped. And we take it further, we take it to the next level. And so based on that, I myself as a developer would tell you about some of the habits that actually differentiate us from a lot of different teams that are out there. And this particular talk is based on my experience, a very recent experience that I faced. And I would like to explain to you, in my opinion, what differentiate well, a highly, I would say, skillful developer and a highly awesome developer. And this might be of some interest to you, and maybe you as a developer can take some of the insights and apply them to your daily coding life. You as, for example, a business owner can also see and understand some of the insights and take actions on your current development team. And also you as a project manager or as a product owner can, take this into account as well to motivate your team to grow into like an awesome team. So I'm as a developer for already several years, like more than 3 years. And yeah, let's get right into the topic. Well, first of all, I would like to talk about the domain of this presentation. The domain is the following. So in this presentation, I would like to explain not how to become a very skillful software developer. So this is not about it. Neither I would explain how to, orient on, users, because the developers are like almost always are concentrated on users, who would use their code, like who would use the product they are building, and so on and so forth. In this presentation, instead, I would like to talk about the development in terms of team communication. So I would like to say that, well, of course, software development is hard. And basically it's hard because of two factors: people and the data. And so, well, if we think about it more, we should understand that software developers, they develop software not only for users, but also, so there are some other stakeholders to that process, and those stakeholders are your team and the business owners, project managers, and so on and so forth. So awesome developers consider all of that. And so it starts from communication. So the first habit that actually you should build and you should always cultivate is the habit of writing stand-ups. Well, stand-ups are not that comedy thing, to make people laugh, although sometimes they really make people laugh. But some stand-ups are simple, well, pieces of writing that would communicate to your team the things you did yesterday, the things you are going to deal with today, and also some of the issues or blockers or problems that you currently have. So this is basically the standard stand-up format. And actually, And actually, stand-ups are really useful when it comes to communication with the team and with business, with product owners, and especially if you add some, so the standard stand-ups might not be so valuable to the team. So I would say the next level you go is that you can add some of the time estimates for your activities, and later on slides I would show you how to do that and how it looks like actually. So also, when you're writing a stand-up, usually it happens daily, so that you are not really willing, I would say. Maybe you're not willing, or you're not really prepared for your daily stand-up meeting, I would say, or you're working really remote. You can drop a stand-up and everything would be understandable. So what are your problems and what will you do today and so on. So the other tip I would like you to have is that you should actually link tickets. I mean, put real URLs in your stand-ups, because basically when the other people would read it, in order to get more information on that, they would go through the link and would see the actual tickets. And of course, put stand-up in common communication channels. So if you're working in Slack, for example, you can post it in general channel or whatever communication channel there are, so that everyone could see that. So not only your teammates, but also business, but also project managers and whatever stakeholders there are. Stand-ups is the best place to tag people to bring the attention of them. So if you ever need something from other person, you post a stand-up at the beginning of the day, tagging that person, saying, hey, something is not working, please go ahead and fix that. And also the very next level is actually to update your stand-up at the end of the day with some pretty or very explanatory emoji, so that people would understand what you actually did and what you actually couldn't do. And that is really important, because you write stand-ups not only for yourself, but also for the team. So as to the examples, so for example, here is one of my colleagues' stand-up, which is actually based on Slack. And so as you can see, he explicitly outlined what he did yesterday and what he did, what he would do today, and what blocks his progress. You can also see that there are some checks, so that the checks actually indicate that people have read his stand-up. And this is crucially important, because you have to see the feedback of the other people. And as you can see, there are also some time estimates, so that project managers are aware of how much time the person can spend on some some today's tasks. Here is also a stand-up of my colleague. She has no problems, she has no blockers, but she explicitly outlined the tickets and also provided some time estimates on what she was working on and what she would work on. And here's my stand-up. So as you can see, it's not based on Slack, it's Discord. But I also, like the same thing, I outlined what I did and what I did not do with these mushrooms, However, well, the point here is that stand-ups is not, I would say, it's not only a tool, a useful tool, it's also a habit. So sometimes we are required to write stand-ups based on our company's culture. However, the other times we are not. However, I also I always write stand-ups because it's a good practice. And so, for example, telling about this project in particular, people changed their attitude and people were amazed by how stand-ups can actually communicate well within a team and how they can facilitate and improve the whole communication. So please consider writing stand-ups and like informative stand-ups, I would say, within your projects because they really boost communication and help to bring people's attention. Okay, so the next tip, and basically it's also a habit, is to base your work on issues. By issues, I mean tickets, tasks, or whatever there is that has the context of the problem. So basically, we get used to working, for example, in Jira. There are also a lot of other issue trackers. However, if you don't have any, you can always base your work on GitLab or GitHub issues, and this actually allows you, well, pretty obvious to mention them in commits and then trace it later. So if you ever have problems, proving that you did some work, you can always mention that, okay, let's go to the issue that I was solving, let's see the code, because you would definitely find commits that were based on this issue. Then, well, I would show you later on the examples from Jira, but the main point, one of the main points here is that you are basing the work on issues to have a purpose of your coding. So because if you do coding without any particular purpose, you might easily get distracted and code a lot of unnecessary things. And this is also crucial for developers because we really, so since we love to code, we tend to get overly complicated things. We tend to code a lot, and then we really send huge code chunks that are hard to review. But if you base on your work on issues, you would not get distracted. Well, occasionally, I would say, with high chances, you would not get distracted and you would code to the purpose. And also, issues, of course, they limit the scope of the work. So the more detailed and the more up to the point the issue is, the more, the less is the scope of the work. And so this actually prevents you from overheating because, there are some of the cases when you work like 7 hours nonstop coding, and then you find yourself being overheated, basically being really warmed up and understanding nothing that you coded. Issues also help you to do step-by-step development because basically you create a general issue, for example, you break it down into smaller issues, and then you accomplish them step by step, which is also really helpful. And of course, as I already said, you can use whatever issue tracker there is, but believe me, basing your work on issues would really prevent you from a lot of, I would say, unnecessary work, a lot of overheating, and this would actually leave the trace of your work across your, I would say, environment, right? By the trace, I mean later developers who would take over your code, for example, or who would read your code, or even project managers, or even business that would read, through the documentation, they would always see the issues over there and the code that it was based on these issues. Here's the example from Bitbucket. So as you can see, there are commits messages, and then here are the issues that were mentioned by those commits. And so if I ever need to, find the work that I did for this particular issue to accomplish it, to close it, I would then refer to these commits to see what was actually done. And this is really useful. Here is the example from GitLab. And as you can see, I mentioned, or my colleague mentioned the tickets in the issue title so that we easily can find those commits later on. And here's Jira, so how they mention, so if you install plugins, there is a possibility to actually see the whole history of commits in comments, and this is really handy. So this really helps project managers or business track what you do for a particular issue. So one thing that often differentiate successful teams from non-successful teams, or the teams that really perform well and the teams that don't and they give up on projects, is the habit to document things. Well, by documenting things, I mean really documenting things. So, for example, one important thing that a lot of the teams are missing is to document, to actually provide README files, so that later when a developer, for example, a site developer comes in, see the code, he would understand the context. So always, please always ask your developers, or if you're a developer, fill the README file with the context. And I would show you later how it looks like. So in the README file or in the other documents, you should also document how you run tests for your code. So how you can prove that your code works is by writing tests for that and running those tests so that they can pass. So provide the context for provide the context for running tests, how to run it locally. So you should explain to other developers how to launch it locally, and it would better be fast and easy. And also explain project structure and configurations, because a lot of the times these explanations are lacking. And if the person cannot understand configuration, one just cannot really run the project properly or deploy it properly. Of course, to better understand things, we as humans are more used to images rather than text. So please, if you can, actually you always can, but if you have more time, provide diagrams, charts, or anything else that help to get the context of your project. For example, what are the services that your project are dealing with? And last but not least, and maybe the most important one, is document shit. As developers, we always write shit. Even the most experienced developers do write shit. Of course, later they refactor that shit and it becomes less shit. However, there is always over there. So mention the issues related to this, smelly code, I would say, in code comments, so that later when the other developer would proceed to your code, they would know what they can touch and smell and what they cannot actually and should not. So this is really crucially important for especially for the legacy code, so that these documentations become a life savior, seriously. And so here, one of the simplest example is showing how to run the project locally, how to run the tests. So just do some commands and it would automatically set up and the project would be working. For example, here is the README of one of our projects, and actually this is a chatbot that helps us to write stand-ups. So as you can see, there is the context. There are some badges to indicate what is the status and what is the quality of the project, and also some of the features. So this is just one part of the documentation. And also this is maybe one of the example of how you can explain the context that you have to deal with in the service. And for example, here you can see that this was actually developed by me. So I indicated what services are ready and what services are not so ready or not ready at all, right? So the red indicates that everything is not so good with this service, but the green ones are, they're showing that everything is okay. And yeah, so this is documenting shit. we should provide some of the context in the code itself. and the next developers would read this and understand why actually it's there and what maybe should be done lately. Code should be self-documented. We all understand that. However, sometimes you're going fast and you just need to leave the comment to refactor it later on. So the other habit that actually helps a team go smoothly in project development is the habit to visualize things. So a lot of the times, the team that actually worked on the project then later cannot see the effects, cannot see the results of this project when it's run, when it's actually deployed. And so one of the ways you can do that is actually you can visualize your project events. For example, make a stream of them to a very common place where all your team can view that. And also you can visualize the data. For example, what the amount of commits everyone makes within a day, or the stand-ups, how they write stand-ups, and if they actually write stand-ups, and so on and so forth. So here's the example of our visualization in one of the projects. So as you can see, the bot, I'm talking about making a report saying how much time we actually spent in a day on the project, how many commits we made, if we did write a stand-up, and so on. And there are cute emoji that indicate like the attitude toward some of the not so good stuff, right? And here's the event feed that we have within some of our projects. So this is the example of how people get registered, how they add their cards, how they create some agreements and pay for them, and so on and so forth. So this is really helpful because this keeps team informed that their product is being used, and that actually motivates a lot. Right, and the next one here is actually about paying out things, and even the coverage report that would indicate if the tests are passing and how much of the code is covered with tests. This is really handy because teams get demotivated if the tests are not so high coverage, but if it has the high coverage, then they would be really amazed, and the project managers are really happy about that all the time. So one more habit is actually to show Damas. So I wondered why some of the projects are stuck at one place and do not really move forward. And then the simple answer to that is that the project owner or the business never saw any demo. If you do not really see with your own eyes how your team coded something and it works, then you have a problem. So there is always a way to show demo of your, I would say, your work, whether it's live demo to the team or business owners. If you have, for example, a nice working app or a web app or a website, or if you're building something such as an API service, you can use some of the tools that there are to show your customers or your project managers how the things you've built is working. So this is crucially important because basically they would understand what is working and what is not. And you can provide them more context, right? So you can say, okay, this part is working, this part is still missing, but I made, for example, a solution that actually prevents us from failing here. So later I would redevelop it, or I'm missing some of the instruments, or I'm missing some of the, services. So please bring your attention over there and, provide some more, for example, financial support, or provide some of the some of the other support to actually, resolve this issue. So a lot of the times, especially when we are working remotely, we cannot gather as a team, to make this demo live. So in this case, this should also not prevent you from making a demo. This actually should motivate you to record a video, a simple video, a screencast of the things that are working, even like on your local machine. And this would also, motivate your colleagues or motivate your project managers and business, to support you, to see what you're actually doing, to get more, for example, more attention to the problems that you have, or to actually just calm down because they would see that you have the results. And the next habit that would actually make you an awesome developer is the habit of following good code culture. And good code culture actually involves a lot of the things. So in this short stream, I would not touch like a lot of them, but some of them that I saw very important, like in recent several months, I would touch on them as well. So linters are actually a good practice to follow the standard code guidelines of different languages. So as the developer, you should always use linters to make your code readable and more readable to other developers. And as you can see in this pipeline, the first step that we have is actually lint. So that passes the linters, and if our code is not satisfying the linting standards, we just do not go further. We prevent from deployment. We also write tests. So tests are crucial. Tests prove that your code works. And so when the code is adjusted to the guidelines, tests prove that your code works, and tests help to debug. Tests help to actually, eliminate bugs, I would say. And so the next phase that we usually have in our pipeline is the tests. So with the test pass, we can then build and deploy our applications and code whatever. And so these are usually a very good code culture, and this allows us to build pipelines and automate things so that, for example, when tests are passing, a coverage report appears, right? And the whole team sees that this project is covered with tests and that project is not covered with tests. So it's really risky to deploy that. And each project, especially when deployed, needs to be monitored, right? Needs to be monitored. And when something bad happens, we should alert. We should alert to the team that something is happening, that this is really crucial, and so on and so forth. So here's the example of a good code culture to place a very informative logs so that when something bad happens, we know it before our customers know it, and we can resolve things before our customers even get stressed or get something bad happening to their data, for example. Sentry is one of the ways how you can easily set up monitoring and alerting, but of course there are a lot of other tools that are really out there helping you to have their eyes in production or in staging even. So this is staging events, by the way, so no worries, everything went great. And yeah, so the last but not the least one, and maybe the most important one, is that you have to have a habit to communicate with great care. Great care, of course, for other people, right? Because the communication is basically between two or maybe more people, and people don't read your minds, right? So when, for example, especially when you're working remotely, and currently most of us are working remotely, right? Because we basically, because of this pandemic situation, we are stuck at homes, right? However, this makes it even more important to communicate with care, because if you don't, everything falls apart, right? And so the first rule of this remote communication is that you do not communicate with direct messages. So you do not write you do not write direct messages to someone, because basically this would cause information shortage. So this would cause someone knowing something and the rest of the team do not. And maybe if it is really non-work related, this is the case. However, in most of the cases, you can just communicate via common channel so that everyone knows what you're talking about or what you're asking, right? And people usually tend to keep promises that were made in the common channel rather than, in direct messages. So you should also tag people when you or the team has troubles. So tagging is also a common way to attract people's attention, and this helps team, to get focused and to resolve problems quickly. And of course, do provide context of the message, because you really do not expect people to read your mind. And sometimes a simple message without a context can get the other person lost. And when they are lost, they get angry. And when they get angry, a lot of bad things happen. So please provide the context. So just don't say, well, I need it. Well, for example, you need your colleague to do some coding for you. So don't just say, I need you to do this coding. Provide the reasons, like why. Maybe deadlines are approaching and you need the exact things from them because they are lacking in some of the places, and so on and so forth. Because when people do have context, they usually get along well. If they don't, they don't. And I also noticed one of the things that usually being overlooked is thanking your teammates and emphasizing their good job. Because we tend to concentrate on ourselves, and we tend to, ask and seek for attention, right? Seek for appraisal. However, thanking your teammates would definitely be worthwhile, not as a way to, to get some results from them, but just as a way to indicate that they are doing great. And this would motivate them to actually feedback it to you, right? So they would also indicate, they would follow up to you saying what you do great and what you don't do great, and so on. So thanking your teammates also create this, team climate, which is a really supportive thing, right? So you are being motivated when teammates tell you that you do a valuable job, and so on and so forth. So don't forget to thank your teammates, because this brings a lot of happiness to the team. And of course, don't break promises. So we always constantly break promises, even made to ourselves, right? Don't promise if you are not sure that you would, obey, that you would live up to the expectations. Actually, this is a very golden rule to not set the expectations, but then you work extra thing, right, to just exceed the expectations. And then your project managers or your business owners are more happy about that, right? Because they didn't expect you do a lot of great stuff, but you did. And you this is something that is called walking extra mile. So this really helps you to become an awesome developer in the minds of others, right? So awesome developers are those, summarizing the things that I said, awesome developers within the team, they do communicate well. they do visualize stuff they want to visualize. They bring attention and they move forward with the product by showing, demos that provide the context to business, to the team, to project managers, what you're doing currently, how the project is going, how the project is moving, what is lacking. And this is actually a game-changing environment that would, make your team, make your business owners a lot happier. This is basically it. Of course, it's not the only thing that would make them happier. You should definitely code good and deliver the results. However, those things developed as a habit can really boost your, I would say, professionalism and make you an awesome developer in a very short time. Thank you so much for watching, and I guess it's time for questions.
Wow.
If we have any.
Wow, thank you so much. It was an awesome stream. So I hope several questions, and it's like we have several comments that bravo, clap, 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 Anatoly. So thank you for your presentations. So if you have any questions, you can ask them by typing the comments, and we can answer them now.
Yeah, so if you're watching this stream as a recording, you can also leave comments over there, maybe to propose your own, I would say, habits of awesomeness as developers, or maybe as project managers, or even maybe as business. But we always are willing to hear your opinions, hear back from you. Your feedback and follow-up is really appreciated. So for example, for me, this was my expertise that I gained like within last several months. However, there are, I am sure, more experienced developers that also have something to say. So please feel free to comment. I would love to hear from you.
Oh, I see that we don't have any question, but we have several. Thank you for your presentation. So I think it was really awesome. And I hope you can answer them later if we have some questions. So thank you for your stream, Anatoly. So see you guys. And I hope it's not our last stream on English. Goodbye.
Take care.